everyone and welcome to the den, and as you know from the title, we're canning carrots. Carrots are super easy. If you're thinking about starting canning, or maybe you're looking for a recipe for your first time canning, carrots are a great option, especially, well, for pressure canning, because there's not a lot of prep work other than peeling them and chopping them. So we're gonna get right on into that. The first step in this process is I'm going to get all my jars clean. My canner will hold 26 half pints. I have 23, and I think I'll have enough carrots to fill all those, but I don't feel like going downstairs to get more jars, so 23 it will be if that's what I can fill up. So I have some already soaking in my hot soapy water along with lids and rings, and I'm just going to get all the jars I have clean, and that's going to be my first step. Alright, so I have all my lids, rings, bands all washed up. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this 5-pound bag of carrots, I'm going to peel, and then I'm going to grab my mandolin and I'll start chopping. But first thing, let's peel some carrots. Okay, so all peeled up, and next thing I'm going to do is I am going to chop the bottoms and the tops off, and then I'm going to grab out my mandolin and we are going to start chopping. I'm going to be raw packing my carrots today. It's super easy. You don't have to do the whole like blanch. They don't require that. There is a hot pack method, but I'm going to choose the raw because that's easier. And I do half pints because I use carrots in only a very few amount of recipes. So, and only my oldest daughter and I eat carrots that are cooked. So if we just want to have carrots for dinner, just us, I can just grab a half pint and that's enough. So I don't want to have to open a pint and then not use them. So that's the reason why I use half pints. Feel free to use quart size or pint size and just follow your directions for whatever the canning is for that, for like times, for the timing. So anyways, right now I'm going to get these prepped and ready for the mandolin. Alright, so I have my mandolin here, and be careful when using a mandolin if you don't already know this. It's very, very sharp. So I have it set to 6 millimeters, which is about the equivalent of a 1/4 inch, is that's what I want my carrots to be. So I'm just going to start giving them a chop. And like I said, be very careful because it is very sharp. And as you get closer, sometimes you don't notice how close you are. So I'm just going to continue to chop these. Okay, so look what happened. I cut my finger on the mandolin and it was pretty nasty. Probably needed stitches or needs stitches, but I'm not going to mess with that today. I'm just going to I just cleaned it up, put some antibiotic ointment on it, and wrapped it up. So show must go on, and I will take care of this for the rest of the week and keep it clean and all that, but that is why I hate the mandolin, and please use extreme caution when you're using a mandolin or any type of knife. I have cut myself more times than I can count, and the last time I cut myself, I was cutting raw chicken, so at least this time it was just carrots. So anyways, but I am done. I was able to, I actually cut myself on the mandolin in like the 2nd or 3rd carrot. So what are you gonna do, right? But like I said, I got the knife out. I cut the rest by hand. So now the next part is we're gonna jar them up. I'm waiting for my potatoes to come down off of pressure. They're almost there. So I'm gonna start filling my jars up with carrots right now, and then we'll go from there. All right, so here's my bucket of carrots. I have about It's about, I don't know, 3 quarts, 2.5 quarts of carrots here. So hopefully we can get through most of our half pints. So let's do that now. Okay, so these are raw packed carrots. You're just gonna grab some and you're gonna pack them tightly in the jar. Just try to get as many in there as you can. And then we'll come back and top these off to our 1-inch headspace with our hot water. So I'm just filling these in room temperature jars. The carrots are room temperature. And then I'm gonna just put somewhat hot, warmer liquid in there because my canner will be hot. So there's really no sense in heating your jars because the carrots are cold, so they're raw packed. And I'm not gonna do a boiling water in this. I'm just gonna use warm water. So I'm just gonna continue to fill these and then I'll come back once I'm done. Okay, so my 5 pounds of carrots yielded me about 16 half pints, which would be the equivalent to 8 pints or 4 quarts. So if you did 10 pounds of carrots, you would definitely get a 7-quart full canner load, most likely. And I think that would be better if I was doing, you know, if I wanted to fill it up with the 23 or 26 half pints. But I don't care, I just want to get this done today, quite honestly, after this little incident. So I am going to fill these up with hot liquid now. I'm just going to get my kettle going and I'm going to warm up the liquid and I'm going to fill them up and we're going to do a 1-inch headspace. So let me get that going. Okay, so I just have my kettle here and I'm just going to fill these up one at a time. So I get close to that headspace line. Alright, so now you want to take your tool and debubble. Just go around the sides. Make sure there's no air pockets in there. Move them around a little because your water line may move, may shift. But that will also give your headspace line a nice kind of even top on here. So that one's done. And just do the same for all of them. Just moving those carrots around, making sure there's no air pockets in them. And then I just kind of push mine down. I have had carrots siphoned before, so just kind of give them a little push. Just do it with all your jars. Sometimes it's hard to get the thing in there, and if that's the case, just kind of give them a little shove. So we're just going to check headspace now, and my tool has the 1-inch mark, so I just put that on the lip of the rim and I just check all my jars and make sure they're at 1 inch. And I go, like I said, go through all your jars, make sure you have a 1-inch headspace. Okay, so if you want to add salt to these, a 1/4 teaspoon is enough for a half pint. If you're doing a pint, you can do a half teaspoon, and for a quart, it would be a full teaspoon. So you just want to take your wet rag. These are raw carrots. They're not sticky yet. They will be sticky, or they can be sticky if they siphon. I've had that happen to carrots before. But sometimes just, it doesn't matter what it is, it just siphons. Just take your wet rag. It doesn't have to be a vinegar, it doesn't have to have vinegar on it. It can just be a wet, moist paper towel. Just go over your rims. Make sure you have no cracks or nicks in your rims here. You don't want to have anything in the way of preventing a really good seal. Or any little carrot chunks or anything like that. Salt bits if you had salt. You don't have to add salt. It is not required. It is only for flavor. So if you're, you know, watching your sodium intake, just leave it out. So now I'm all done with my wiping the rims here. So I'm just going to put my lids and bands on. I didn't do anything special with my lids. Just wash them in hot soapy water. I don't keep them warm or anything. That's not, you don't have to do that. Some canners are just so used to doing it that way because that's the way that you used to do it. But I figure the less work, the better. Especially when you're accident prone like me and you go and cut yourself. Almost every single time I'm chopping, and like, that's just me, I don't know, I just do that. Alright, so bands are next, and you just want to go finger tight, and I'll show you here finger tight, and that is just fingers only. No elbow grease needed. And just finish putting your bands on, and then we'll get the canner loaded up. Okay everyone, so this is my canner, and it's a 23 quart Presto canner, pressure canner. And I just pulled potatoes out of this. So I dumped out the potato water that was in here, or the water that was in there for the potatoes to pressure can with. And I did that because you don't know how much liquid is left after a canning session. So if you're gonna can back to back, make sure that you dump the old water and start with fresh water. So that's what I did. So I have my heat right now at just over medium heat, and the water is warm. I put warm water in there, but the carrots aren't real hot, so we don't want a huge temperature adjustment or shock here. So I'm gonna get my carrots and we're gonna start loading this puppy up. Okay, so that's it. I have 8 on the top, 8 on the bottom, and I am going to put my lid on now. Now you saw me when about halfway through, I put my separator rack in there, and you don't have to have one of those. You can stagger your jars. I find that the separator helps to keep them from not falling over. So that's why I have that, and I went with the actual Presto rack because I didn't trust any of the other brands. So if you want to get one, I'll link that below. I got mine off of Amazon, so I'll put a link to one of those down below for you, and I'll also link my canner and some of the products that I use with my canner. I get my ugly finger out of the shot, but like I said, 23 quart Presto. I'm not going to be at full capacity today because I did not have enough carrots, but we're still going to get 16 half pints. So that's still a good amount of carrots, and I'll be happy with that. And anything that I can put up right now at today's prices is good for me. So next step in the game is grab your lid. Make sure you can see through your hole. Like, this is my second round today. So I'm going to make sure that I can see through my vent pipe hole. And that would be this right here. You want to make sure you can see through that. Make sure that this thing moves. And you're going to line them up arrow to arrow if this is your style of canner. Just like that. And then twist it on. It will nest into place. And I'm going to even mine out here. And then I always check this to make sure that this moves freely if it's not too hot. Because I have had this thing get stuck on me. And if it gets stuck on you, then you have to turn the heat off. Take the lid off, figure out why it's getting caught, and start that process all over again. So I don't want to do that, so I always make sure that it moves up and down freely so that when it's time for this thing to pop up so this canner can build pressure, we are good to go. You don't want to have to go through like your whole vent cycle and get there and then realize, why is this thing not popping up? So it won't build pressure if this thing doesn't pop up. So here we go. We're going to wait for the vent cycle now. And I got her at about medium, just over medium heat right now. And we should come to a vent here pretty soon. And when it comes to a vent, I'll bring it back, show you what it looks like. So until then, I'll see you in a moment. All right, so we're at a vent stage now. And what you're looking for is a full steady vent from this pipe here. And it will spit and sputter for a while. Let it do that for a while until you get to a full vent. And it'll just be like a solid amount coming out. I mean, it's still even gonna spitter, still even gonna do a little bit of sputtering, but you'll know when you get to a full vent because you'll see a steady amount. A lot of this steam is coming from the other valve, but this is also, it's hard to see, but it is at a full vent too. So once you get to a full vent, go ahead and set your timer for 10 minutes. You want to replace the air inside the canner with steam, and that's what we're trying to do right now. So I have my timer set, and I'll be back in 10 minutes. All right, everyone, so my timer is up, and the next thing that I'm going to do is drop my weight over the vent pipe, and it's already starting to build some pressure here. And so now all we're going to wait, well, what I'm going to wait for is for it to build pressure to what it needs to be for my elevation, which would be 13 pounds of pressure. So check in your canning book for what your altitude is, and then that will tell you what pressure you need to be at. So that's all I'm doing right now is I'm just waiting for this to build pressure. Don't start your timer yet. You can't start your timer until you get to the pressure you need to be at for your elevation. This is a 15-pound weight. It doesn't rock or do anything like that until it gets over the 15-pound. It will start to rock at about 16, 17. So when I hear it rocking, then I will just turn it down a little bit. But we're still at about medium-high heat here. So I'm gonna let this build pressure, and I'm just gonna wait on it. And then once it gets to 13, I'll bring it back. All right, so you can see now I'm sitting at about almost 15. So I am well within the 13 that I need to be at, and I'm gonna set my timer for 25 minutes because I'm doing half pints. So I'm gonna go with the pint timing for that. If you're doing quarts, I do believe it's 30 minutes. So this is the time now where you can set your timer, and that's what I did. So I'm just gonna wait out the 25 minutes. I'm gonna keep an eye on my pressure gauge throughout the time. You do not want it to go beneath the pressure for your elevation. So I'm not gonna let this go underneath 13. I have turned my heat down some, so I'm about at medium or a little less than medium, where I was at just right above medium. But as you can see, it's still climbing here. So you don't want that to go, I mean, it's fine if it goes over, totally fine if it goes over. I keep mine at about 15, but just don't let it go under. But it will continue to climb if you don't adjust your heat. If you see that it's climbing, that's what you need to do. You just need to adjust your heat to a lower setting. Don't go crazy with the adjustment in the heat. Turn it down gradually. And that's what I did. I just turned mine down to a little bit past medium towards low. So that's where we're at right now. And it should stop building pressure. I may have to turn it down a little bit more, but I'm gonna keep an eye on it. I never walk away or am away from the canner for too long, but it's nice because this is only a 25-minute process time, so it'll be done pretty quick. It's not like when you have to watch, you know, chicken or meat or beans where you're canning for 75 to 90 minutes. So that's what we're doing right now. Just gonna watch our We're just gonna watch our pressures and adjust heat as needed or as necessary. And when that timer's up, I'm gonna be right back. So my timer just went off, and all I did was turn my heat completely off. I'm not gonna do anything else. I'm not gonna remove my weights. I'm not gonna move the canner. I'm not gonna do anything to it other than just turn the knob to off for the heat. Now all I'm gonna do is wait for this to come off of pressure all by itself. Once my dial gets all the way to 0 and the pressure valve drops, then it would be okay for me to remove my lid, but not anytime before that. Also, do not remove your weight. Don't do that yet. It has to come off of pressure all by itself. Don't rush it. It could make, the pressure change could make the jars explode. So, just don't do anything else. Just turn the heat off. And once I have it down to 0 and I take my lid off, I'll let them sit in there for about 5 minutes. When you take the lid off, they'll be still bubbling. You might still hear some hissing. Like today this is my second canning session today, so when I opened the lid for my potatoes, I was kind of like, as soon as that pressure valve dropped, I pulled the lid off because I wanted to be able to get them out so that I could get my carrots in. But when I took the lid off, like I do sometimes when I'm taking it off right away, you will hear the jars kind of hissing, and you'll see lots of bubbles and things like that, and it's very, very hot. But when we get to that point, I will bring you back and I'll show you exactly how I take my lid off, what to look for, and what the jars look like on the inside. So I'll see you in a little bit. Okay, so the pressure's dropped to 0, pressure valve's down. I'm gonna remove my weight, make sure there's no steam, and we're good there. I'm gonna take the lid off, and remember that this is very hot, this lid is very hot. There's still a bunch of steam inside, and you wanna remove it as quickly as you can, and try to remove it away from your face. Normally you would lift this lid up towards your face so that the steam went out the other way. But my microwave gets in the way, so I just do it quick. So I'm gonna take it off, set it aside. I just set mine in my sink and take a look inside. They're not hissing because this has been at 0 for a little bit now. So I'm gonna go ahead and remove one. so that you can see it there, and you can see that they shrink. That's why you pack these jars real tight, because your carrots will shrink up a little bit as they cook. So I'm going to set this one aside on my towel. And then I'm going to take the rest of these out, and I'm going to set them all on my towel. I will let them sit there until tomorrow morning, and then along with my potatoes, because my potatoes are over there too. And tomorrow I will give them a wash, because sometimes if they've siphoned, carrots are really, really sticky. So make sure that I don't see any siphoning in here, and my water in the bottom looks clear. So, but sometimes you'll find one that has siphoned. So take your bands off, give them a wash. I take my band off, then wash them. That's just how I do it. And then I don't put the bands back on. I don't store mine with the bands on. I store mine with the bands off. If you don't have space for all those bands, you can leave them loosely on the top. Just don't tighten them down, because if these were to go bad or for some reason have spoilage and that lid needs to pop off, it needs to have space to be able to do that, so that when you go to use it, you know it's bad. Now that's not the only way to know that if something is bad, but that can happen. So with that in mind, try to store with your bands off, and don't put anything heavy on top of them. Like, don't stack your jars together. Make sure that they're on like separate shelves or whatever. And they do take up a lot of space, but there are ways that you can get creative so that you can kind of have like a layer over a layer without them touching. So that's it. So today I did 2 canning sessions, potatoes and carrots. So my potatoes I've already made a video on. I did set a card for that one, so if you wanted to watch that one, you could check it out. If not, just look on my channel and you'll see it there. And thank you so much for watching. If you haven't already subscribed, then I would greatly appreciate it if you do that. I genuinely appreciate anyone who subscribes and watches my videos. It helps my channel to grow, helps me to know that what I'm doing is a good thing and to keep doing it. So for now, I am going to go ahead and just finish this up, and my stock over here is boiling away and simmering away, and that's going to be one of my next upcoming videos, is canning chicken stock. So keep a lookout for that one. And again, if you haven't subscribed, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, and select all. That way you can stay up to date with anything that I post. So until the next video, I'll see you then.